What if I told you there was a man, ancient, mysterious, and righteous, who lived in a world drowning in sin, yet never tasted death? While empires rose and fell, while giants walked the earth and angels fell from heaven, one man walked in quiet defiance of darkness, not with a sword, but with God himself. He didn't build kingdoms, he didn't lead armies. He simply walked, faithfully, daily, intimately with the Creator. And one day, without warning, he vanished. Not because he was lost, but because he was taken. This is not myth. This is not legend. This is the true account of Enoch, the man whose life was so pleasing to God that heaven refused to let the grave claim him. Step into the ancient world before the flood. Witness the rise of evil and the fire of prophecy. Walk beside a man whose footsteps echoed through eternity. This is the story of Enoch, the man who never died, the man who walked with God and was no more. Please, before we start this story, don't forget to like his video and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's begin. In the days when the earth was still clothed in the dew of creation, when the sons of Adam walked the land in the strength of their years, and the breath of the Almighty still lingered in the wind, the world was not yet drowned in the weight of wickedness, though shadows had begun to creep across the hearts of men. Adam, the first of all flesh, lived long upon the earth, 930 years, and his eyes beheld the fruit of his loins multiply as the stars of the heavens. Yet sorrow clung to him, for the ground was cursed, and he knew the bitter taste of death, having buried his son Abel, slain by the hand of Cain. But the Lord in mercy gave unto Adam and Eve another son, and they called his name Seth, saying, God hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And through Seth was kindled a flame that would not be quenched, a holy lineage, a righteous remnant in a land that was beginning to forget its Maker. In the days of Seth, men began again to call upon the name of the Lord. Their voices rose like incense in the cool of the evening. They built altars upon high places and declared the ancient stories of the garden, of the tree of life, of the voice that walked among the trees in the cool of the day. From Seth came Enoch, and from Enoch came Kenan, and from Kenan came Mahalalel, and from Jared was born. These men, though mortal, bore the knowledge of the Most High, and though the earth groaned beneath the weight of sin, yet the righteous whispered to their children of Eden and of the promise. They lived long years, 8 centuries and more, and they became walking scrolls of memory, living witnesses of the beginning. Grandfathers walked beside their great-great-great-grandsons, telling them of Adam, who had seen the very face of God and heard his voice thundering from the heavens. But the world began to change. The hearts of men waxed cold. Violence spread like a fever across the land. The mighty began to exalt themselves, and the weak were oppressed. Great cities rose, and the works of man grew proud. They built with stone and iron, but not with wisdom. They spoke of the stars, but forgot the one who made them. It was into such a world that Jared, son of Mahalalel, begat a son and named him Enoch. And this child would be unlike all who came before him. for the Lord had marked him. His name meant dedicated, set apart, chosen, a vessel of the Lord's purpose. Though the world was slipping toward chaos, heaven had not turned its gaze away. The Almighty was preparing a man through whom light would yet shine in a dark generation. Thus began the days of Enoch, seventh from Adam, in whom would be revealed a mystery so profound that even death would have no claim upon him. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit and in understanding. His name was Enoch, and from his youth a strange light seemed to rest upon him, not seen with the eyes of the flesh, yet felt by all who drew near unto him. His voice was gentle, yet his words carried weight. His eyes were bright, as though beholding a world unseen. His father Jared, a man of long years and quiet wisdom, looked upon his son and marveled. For though Jared had walked the earth for over a century and had seen the rising corruption among men, he saw in Enoch a spark of something ancient, something pure, as though the breath of Eden had touched him. Jared sat with his son beneath the stars and told him the tales of old, of Adam, the first man, who had walked with God in the garden of delight, of the serpent who beguiled, of the flaming sword that barred the way to the tree of life. And Enoch listened, his young heart stirred by things eternal.
From his grandfather Mahalalel he learned to praise. The name of the Lord, he was taught, is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe. Mahalalel taught him to sing the ancient songs, to lift up holy hands at dawn, and to bless the Lord in the twilight hours. Let every breath be praise, the elder would say, and Enoch learned. From the elders of his line he heard the solemn truth, that the days of man were long, but his heart was weak. That though men lived 900 years and more, yet they often walked far from their Creator. That time was no guarantee of wisdom, nor age a sign of holiness. Thus Enoch grew up in the tension between two worlds, the visible and the invisible, the fading glories of men and the eternal light of the Almighty. He tilled the ground with his hands and learned the ways of the earth, but his thoughts often soared beyond the hills. He saw the cities of men and the pride of their towers, but he also saw the tears of the oppressed and the blood that cried from the ground. And in his soul a question began to rise. Is there not more than this? Is the God of Adam still near? Can a man truly walk with him? The people of the land began to notice this youth who spoke little but listened much. He was not as others. When others laughed at the ways of the Lord, Enoch wept. When men pursued gain, he sought truth. While others feasted and drank, he would go alone to the high places to watch the sunrise and speak with the unseen one. And it came to pass that the Lord also watched Enoch. For while the world turned from its Maker, there was one heart turned toward him. And though Enoch knew it not, heaven had begun to draw near. Even the angels leaned low to behold this young man whose heart burned with holy longing. And it came to pass, in the days of Enoch's strength, when he was no longer a child but a man full of vigor, that he began to withdraw himself from the ways of the multitude. For the land was filled with corruption, and the hearts of men were lifted up in pride. The strong devoured the weak. The builders of cities bowed to no God but their own hands. The songs of worship faded from the earth, and the altars of righteousness grew cold with dust. But Enoch remembered the stories of old, of Eden and the presence of the Most High walking in the garden. He yearned not for riches, nor for the fame of men, but for that lost fellowship, that sacred nearness between man and his Maker. Therefore he rose early in the morning while the world still slumbered, and journeyed to the hills alone. There, amidst the rocks and trees, where the wind whispered secrets and the heavens stretched forth in glory, Enoch lifted his voice to God. O Lord of the beginning, maker of Adam and giver of breath, art thou still near? Dost thou still walk among the sons of men? At first there was silence, but Enoch was not discouraged. He returned again the next day and the next, pouring out his heart like water. He confessed the sins of his people. He lifted songs of praise. He asked for wisdom and understanding. He meditated upon the words passed down through generations. And slowly, like the first light of dawn breaking through the veil of night, something began to change. He felt it first in his spirit, a stirring, a peace that surpassed knowledge, as though unseen hands rested upon his shoulders. Then came the whispers, not of wind, but of truth, a still, small voice within, guiding, comforting, teaching. He knew then, God had heard. Enoch began to walk with the Lord, not with feet only, but with heart and soul. In the mornings he sought him, in the fields he spoke with him. At night, beneath the stars, he communed in stillness. The Most High drew near to him, not in thunder or fire, but in quiet intimacy. And the Lord delighted in Enoch. For here was a man who did not seek visions to boast, nor wonders to impress. He sought God for God's own sake. He hungered for righteousness. He longed for communion. And so the fellowship deepened. What Adam had lost in Eden, Enoch was beginning to rediscover, not in a garden, but in his spirit. The people marveled at him. Some mocked, others feared. They called him mad, a dreamer, a prophet of strange things. Yet Enoch heeded them not. He walked with God, and that is enough. And thus began a journey, not of miles, but of mystery, a walk that would span centuries and pierce the veil between earth and heaven. The ground beneath his feet was still cursed, but the path he walked was holy. Now the years passed, and Enoch's walk with the Lord grew deeper, richer, more sacred. Though he dwelt among men, his spirit soared in heavenly places. He lived upon the earth, but his heart beat with eternity. Yet the earth groaned beneath the weight of iniquity. Men multiplied, and with them wickedness multiplied also. The children of Cain built great cities filled with violence and vanity. They adorned themselves with gold, invented instruments of war and music, and worshipped the works of their own hands. The strong crushed the weak, and the name of the Lord was scorned in the streets. Laughter rang loud at the expense of truth. The altars were abandoned. The righteous were few, scattered like sparks among ashes. And the heart of Enoch was grieved. He stood upon a high place and looked down upon the cities, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. His eyes were opened, and he beheld visions, not of beauty, but of judgment. He saw what others could not see. He saw what was coming. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all, and to convict all the ungodly of their deeds, which they have done in ungodliness, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against me. Enoch trembled, for he saw the flood of wrath stored up like waters behind a dam. He saw the days of reckoning that would overtake the sons of disobedience. He saw that the cup of iniquity was filling swiftly. So he lifted his voice like a trumpet. He walked from village to village, city to city, proclaiming the word of the Lord. "Turn ye back, turn from your wicked ways. The Lord is not blind, neither is his arm short to judge. The days of reckoning are near." But the people laughed him to scorn. "What judgment?" they scoffed. "Look how we flourish. Our cities grow strong, our hands are skilled, our lives are long. What wrath shall overtake us?" And Enoch wept. He wept not for himself, but for them, for the children who would grow up never knowing truth, for the old who would die in rebellion, for the world that had forgotten its Creator. Still, he walked with God. Each morning he received strength. Each evening he laid his burden before the Almighty. The world would not listen, but heaven did. And though Enoch's message was rejected by many, a remnant began to hear. There were still those who remembered Adam's voice, still those who taught their children to call upon the Lord. To them, Enoch became a prophet, a voice of hope and warning. The earth trembled beneath the weight of sin, but one man stood firm, not in his own might, but by the hand of the Most High. And his walk with God was not broken. It only grew stronger. In the 165th year of Enoch's life, a child was born unto him, a son, strong and full of breath, and Enoch called his name Methuselah. Now this was not a name given lightly, for Enoch had walked with God, and the Most High had whispered to him concerning things yet to come. And the name Methuselah in the ancient tongue meant, "When he dies, it shall come." A trembling came over Enoch's soul when he uttered that name, for the Lord had revealed to him a secret, that when this son's life would end, a great judgment would be unleashed upon the earth. And thus the child became a sign unto the generations, a living prophecy in flesh and blood. So Enoch raised his son in the fear of the Lord. He taught him the songs of Adam, the prayers of Seth, the wisdom of Enoch, and the praises of Mahalalel. He built altars and gathered his household to call upon the name of the Lord daily. And Methuselah, though young, knew that his life bore weight far beyond the ordinary. Enoch now walked even more closely with God, for the mantle of fatherhood rested upon him, and he saw in that sacred calling a glimpse of the heart of the Almighty. He felt the ache of divine love, the overburden of a parent longing to save, to guide, to protect. And as he held his son in his arms, Enoch understood, in part, why the Lord had not yet poured out judgment. For the patience of God was like that of a father who waits, and waits still, that his children might turn and live. So Enoch pleaded with the people once more.
"Do you not see the mercy of God?" he cried. "Even now he delays his wrath. Even now he sends warnings in the name of love. The Lord is long-suffering, not willing that any should perish. But the day shall surely come, as sure as the sun rises. Will you not repent?" But the hearts of the multitudes were hardened. They mocked the name of Methuselah, saying, "Is this the child who will end the world?" And they laughed in their pride, eating and drinking, building and boasting. Yet some heeded the message. Quiet families in distant places began to gather once more and call upon the Lord. Fathers taught their sons the truth. Mothers wept in prayer. Seeds of righteousness were sown in hidden places, unseen by the eyes of the proud. And Enoch rejoiced. Though the world moved toward its ruin, heaven was not yet finished. The Lord still walked with his servant, and their fellowship grew sweeter with every passing day. For Enoch's love for God had grown deeper through the love he bore for his son, and the Lord looked upon him with favor. And it came to pass, after the birth of Methuselah, that Enoch walked with God for 300 years, and his days were filled with the fire of divine communion. The world continued in its descent, deeper into violence, deeper into pride. But Enoch's steps moved in the opposite direction, ascending ever closer to the heart of the Almighty. Each morning he rose before the sun stretched its fingers across the earth. He would leave his tent while all slept and ascend to a solitary place. There, among the hills and whispering trees, he met with God. But these were no ordinary prayers, no common rituals. It was fellowship, secret, sacred, intimate. And lo, the Lord came to him as a friend, not in visions only, but in presence, not in thunder and fire, but in stillness and glory. The Eternal One spoke, and Enoch heard. And Enoch answered, and God inclined his ear. What Adam had lost, Enoch began to regain, not the garden, but the walk. Not the fruit of Eden, but the closeness of the Creator. And God revealed many things to Enoch. He opened the scrolls of the heavens and showed him the courses of the stars. He unveiled the secrets of creation, of light and darkness, of wind and flame, of spirit and flesh. He revealed the destiny of nations and the end of the age. He showed him the great judgment to come, not only the flood of water, but the final fire, when the king would return with 10,000 holy ones to execute justice upon all the earth. Enoch trembled at these visions, but he did not flee. He stood firm as one who walks in love, not fear. The people, however, saw him from afar and were divided in their hearts. Some called him mad, a wanderer who speaks of invisible things. Others feared him, sensing that a strange power surrounded him. Still others followed him, hungering for the truth he carried. They gathered at his feet and listened as he spoke in parables and mysteries, truths too deep for many to bear. But to the pure in heart, his words were like rivers in a desert. And Enoch became a witness, not only by speech, but by life. His walk with God was a light in the gathering gloom. His peace was unnatural, his joy unshaken. Where others grasped for power, Enoch was content with presence. While others sought glory, he sought God. And so the Lord drew nearer still. It is written, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" And truly, Enoch had come to agree with God in thought, in will, and in desire. He was no longer merely a man of the earth. His feet touched the soil, but his soul dwelt in the heavens. His hands worked the ground, but his eyes saw eternity. And the veil between mortal and immortal began to thin. He was being made ready. And the years passed like the wind upon the mountains, and Enoch continued to walk with the Lord. Yet his walk was no longer as it had been, for the presence of the Almighty pressed closer still, and Enoch's soul, though clothed in flesh, began to burn with the fire of heaven. No longer was he merely a prophet, he was a companion of God. His body moved among men, yet his spirit soared beyond the veil. He would vanish for days, sometimes weeks, and return with his countenance alight, as one who had stood in the
brightness of the throne. And when he spoke, his words pierced like arrows and soothed like balm, for the wisdom of the Most High rested upon his tongue. The people were astonished. "This is no ordinary man," they said. "There is something not of this world within him." And they were right. For Enoch was being changed, transformed from glory to glory, not by striving, but by abiding, not by sacrifice of beasts, but by sacrifice of self. He had surrendered his will to the will of the Holy One, and in return he was filled with the likeness of his Creator. He thought what God thought. He loved what God loved. He hated what God hated. He saw with eyes not his own, discerning the hearts of men, the paths of nations, and the hidden things of the Spirit. And Enoch was not silent. He stood in the gates of cities and cried aloud, "Turn ye from your wickedness! The day of the Lord shall come like a flood. The judge of all the earth shall not keep silent forever." Yet many laughed still. Their ears were dull, their hearts like stone. They mocked his purity and scorned his message. But the righteous remnant listened. Those who feared the Lord gathered to him. Fathers brought their sons to hear his teaching. Mothers prayed at his side. He did not build a nation, nor raise a temple, yet his words became pillars in the hearts of many, enduring beyond the dust of time. And in those days, something sacred began to stir. Heaven watched. The angels gazed with wonder, for never had a man walked so closely, so faithfully with the Almighty since the days of Eden. Even Adam, though beloved, had fallen. But Enoch, he held the hand of God and did not let go. And lo, the line between time and eternity began to blur. Some say his face shone like the morning sun. Others say the air around him shimmered with light. But all agreed he was no longer just of the earth. The world around him decayed, but Enoch grew ever more radiant. He was a living prophecy, a sign to the generations, a foreshadowing of what man was created to be. And the Lord looked upon his servant and was well pleased, for Enoch was ready. And it came to pass, after many years of walking in holy communion, that Enoch no longer belonged to the earth as other men did. Though he tilled the soil and cared for his household, his heart beat to the rhythm of heaven. The pleasures of this world held no grip upon him. Neither silver nor song could tempt him from the path he had chosen, for his soul had become a sanctuary. Even the beasts seemed to sense it. The lions watched him without wrath. The birds drew near when he prayed. Creation itself responded to the presence of one who walked in harmony with the Creator. And the whispers began to stir among the people. Where does he go when he vanishes? Who speaks with him in the silence of the hills? Is he man or something more? Some feared him. Some followed him, but all knew that Enoch was not like other men. In the secret place, the Lord spoke again, saying, "My servant Enoch, thou art no longer bound to the earth. Thy soul walks in eternity. Soon thy flesh shall follow." And Enoch bowed his head and answered, "Thy will is my joy, O Lord." Now in those days, darkness increased upon the face of the earth. The sons of men grew bolder in their wickedness. Violence filled the cities. The name of the Lord was blasphemed in the marketplaces.
The sons of God beheld the daughters of men and took them without covenant, and strange flesh began to appear upon the earth. And Enoch warned them still. He stood in the midst of the people and declared the words of judgment. The Lord shall come with 10,000s of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all flesh, and to uncover the secrets of the ungodly. Repent, for the day is near.
But their ears were closed, their hearts like flint. They laughed and mocked, saying, "Let your God come if he dares." Yet some, a few, turned their faces toward heaven. A few wept over their sin. A few remembered the garden and longed to walk with God once more. To them Enoch gave his final teachings. He blessed the children, laid hands upon the faithful, and lifted his eyes toward the heavens. And then, one day, he was gone. No chariot of fire, no trumpet blast, no farewell to the sons of men. He simply vanished. As a man stepping from shadow into light, as one waking from a dream into glory, as a whisper swallowed by wind. The people searched. They called his name in the valleys and among the hills, but Enoch was not found, for the Lord had taken him. And it was written for all generations, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And lo, the absence of Enoch became louder than his voice had ever been. For in the days that followed, men walked the hills where he once prayed, and found only silence. His footsteps were no longer upon the stones. His voice no longer called the people to repentance. His tent stood empty, yet not forsaken. It seemed to breathe still with peace. And fear fell upon many, for they knew Enoch had not died. No sickness took him, no beast devoured him, no grave held his bones. He was not taken by the hand of man, but by the hand of the Almighty. The Lord had reached down and lifted his servant into glory. And thus Enoch's disappearance became a sign, a divine signature confirming all he had spoken. The righteous rejoiced, for they knew God had honored his friend. They whispered his name at night and told their children of the man who walked with God and was no more. His teachings were remembered and treasured, his warnings written upon hearts like fire upon stone. But the wicked, they were troubled. What if he was right? Some asked. What if judgment truly comes? They buried their doubts with laughter and drowned their fears in wine, but deep within, the seed of trembling had been planted. And among them still stood Methuselah, the son of Enoch, now a man full of years and understanding. He bore the weight of a name that prophesied, "When he dies, it shall come." And Methuselah walked humbly before the Lord. He remembered his father's final words and kept them close. "Walk with God, my son. Cling not to the dust of this world. The flood shall come, but the righteous shall find shelter in the ark of the Lord." And Methuselah passed these words to his son Lamech, and Lamech would pass them to Noah, whose name was spoken in prophecy before he was born. Thus, the legacy of Enoch did not perish with his vanishing. It echoed. Through sons and grandsons, through whispered prayers and sacred songs, through secret gatherings of the faithful who longed to walk as he walked. Though the world darkened like a storm without end, the light of Enoch's walk flickered still, a single flame in a world of wind. And heaven rejoiced. For though the world laughed, scoffed, and stumbled toward judgment, there had been a man, a son of Adam, who remembered Eden, and who returned not to the dust, but to the arms of his Maker. And it was known in heaven and upon the earth, to walk with God is to overcome death.
And in the years after Enoch was taken, the world groaned with a deeper corruption. The sons of men multiplied across the face of the earth, and with them came pride, lust, and rebellion. Yet something more dreadful crept into the heart of creation, for the boundary between heaven and earth was violated. The Watchers, a host of celestial beings, once appointed to observe, not intervene, looked upon the daughters of men and burned with forbidden desire. They descended from the high places of heaven and took wives from among mortals, defying the order of the Most High. From this unholy union were born giants, Nephilim, mighty men of old, men of renown, whose stature and violence shook the earth. They devoured all that grew, waged war without cause, and taught men the secrets of heaven, twisted into corruption. They revealed weapons of war, potions of sorcery, charms, enchantments, the cutting of roots, and the reading of stars, not for wisdom, but for power. And the earth, once sacred, was now defiled. The cries of the innocent reached the heavens, and the angels above wept at the ruin of creation. The Holy One beheld the lawlessness that spread like wildfire, and he remembered his servant Enoch. Though taken, Enoch's voice was not forgotten in heaven. His warnings had not fallen to the ground, for even now, in the higher realms, he stood among the holy, bearing witness to what he had seen. And the Lord sent word to the fallen watchers through the mouth of Enoch. For a time Enoch was summoned not to return to earth, but to journey among the stars, to deliver judgment upon the rebellious host. Clothed in radiant garments, he passed through realms of fire and light, through chambers where the winds are stored, through the storehouses of snow and hail, until he stood at the threshold of the abyss, the prison of the fallen. And the watchers trembled at his presence, for he no longer came as a man, but as a messenger of the Most High. And Enoch declared, "You were holy, but you defiled yourselves. You descended to dwell with flesh, and now flesh shall be your shame. There shall be no peace for you, no forgiveness, no rest. Your sons shall perish by the sword, and your legacy shall be the flood." And great was their mourning. But heaven had spoken, the judgment was sealed, and Enoch returned to the presence of God, clothed in glory, entrusted with mysteries that no man had ever seen nor would see until the end of days. And though his feet no longer touched the earth, his message thundered still, through Methuselah, through Lamech, through the few righteous who remembered the sacred path. And those who were wise understood that even in the darkest days, God raises up a witness. Even when angels fall, the word of the Lord stands sure, and the days hastened toward reckoning. And in the shadow of heaven's verdict, time moved like a great river, slow and steady, yet ever pressing toward the sea of judgment. The sons of Cain grew in number and power, building cities that scraped the skies, forging weapons that split bone from marrow, and boasting in the strength of their hands. The Nephilim ruled as tyrants, mocking heaven and enslaving the weak, teaching men to trust in sorcery and blood rather than truth and mercy. But far off, in the hills and quiet valleys, a remnant endured, the children of Seth, the faithful lineage that had not bowed to the ways of the fallen. And at the head of this remnant stood Methuselah, the son of Enoch, now aged beyond centuries, yet still strong of voice and spirit. The name he bore weighed heavy upon the world, like a storm cloud that waits to burst. When he dies, it shall come. And those who remembered Enoch trembled. They watched Methuselah with awe, for they knew the mercy of God had stretched out every one of his days. He lived longer than any man before or after him, not by accident, but by divine design. His years were a clock of grace, ticking slowly toward the flood. For the Most High is patient, not willing that any should perish. And as Methuselah grew old, his son Lamech took up the torch of truth. A man of deep sorrow, he wept often at the wickedness of the world. He named his own son Noah, saying this of his own son, "This one shall comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord has cursed." Even in their sorrow, they clung to the promises passed down through generations, the promise of a coming deliverer, the seed who would crush the serpent's head, the one foretold even in Eden.
The righteous taught their children to walk uprightly. They sang the songs of Adam, prayed the prayers of Enoch, and spoke often of Enoch, the man who walked with God and was taken. They whispered of the flood that would come, but the world did not listen. Laughter and revelry filled the streets. The people danced beneath idols of stone and gold. The watchers' knowledge had birthed marvels, but also misery. Men could speak to stars and command fire from earth, but they could no longer hear the voice of God. And the Almighty looked down from his throne. He saw the corruption, the violence, the breaking of every sacred boundary. He saw hearts that loved evil continually, hands stained with innocent blood, and mouths that defied the heavens. Yet still, he waited. He remembered his covenant with the faithful. He remembered Enoch, his friend. And he watched Noah growing in wisdom, learning from his father and grandfather. The Lord was preparing him, silently, patiently, for a work that would shape all of human history. And in the 600th year of Methuselah's life, the signs began to multiply upon the face of the earth. The moon no longer moved as it had. The stars wandered from their paths, and the heavens grew troubled, as if groaning under the weight of corruption. The watchers who had defiled their first estate were cast down into the abyss, bound in chains of darkness, awaiting the day of great judgment. Their hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, had brought ruin to the world, bloodshed, pride, and the elevation of man as God. But among the din of chaos, the eyes of the Lord searched the earth and found one man, a descendant of Enoch, whose heart beat with quiet reverence, Noah, son of Lamech, son of Methuselah. It is written, Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And once more, heaven and earth were bridged by a walk, for the spirit of Enoch lived in him. The legacy of the righteous line had not perished in the flood of iniquity. It had passed from father to son, sealed in prayer, strengthened in quiet obedience. And the Lord spoke to Noah, even as he had once spoken to Enoch. The end of all flesh is before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. But thou, make thee an ark. And so the great work began. Noah built, not in secret, but in the open, a monument of wood, a sermon without words. The ark rose among the people like a silent prophet, its beams testifying of things unseen. And men scoffed. They mocked his hammer, his warnings, his faith. Where is this rain you speak of? The sky is clear, the earth is strong, and we are gods. But Noah did not cease. He worked year after year, trusting the voice that called him. Methuselah, ancient and revered, stood with him. Lamech too, though worn with grief, lifted his hands in prayer for the salvation of their household. And all the while, the voice of Enoch echoed in their memory. Judgment shall come as a flood, but the righteous shall be lifted above the waters.
The animals came 2 by 2, not by Noah's command, but by divine instruction. For even the beasts obeyed their Creator more than the sons of men. And when the ark was complete, and the final warning was given, a hush fell upon the remnant. Methuselah's time was near. And on the day he died, the skies grew heavy. The fountains of the deep began to stir beneath the earth. The winds whispered a name, Enoch, the prophet who had declared these things long ago. The flood would not only wash away the wicked, but confirmed forever the word of the one who walked with God and was taken.
And it came to pass, in the 600th year of Noah's life, that the heavens opened, and the fountains of the deep broke loose with fury. The wrath of the Lord swept across the earth like a cloak of judgment, and all flesh that drew breath perished, save for Noah and those sheltered within the ark. The rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights. Mountains sank beneath waves. Mighty men were swept away. Cities were swallowed whole, and the towers of pride crumbled into silence. Yet above the judgment, the ark rose, a wooden cradle of mercy in a world drowned by rebellion. And within that vessel, the bloodline of Enoch lived on. Though Enoch had not seen death, his voice remained like thunder in the hearts of the righteous. His walk with God had not perished. It had multiplied, passed from Methuselah to Lamech, from Lamech to Noah, and from Noah to all generations who would hear. Even in the stillness of the flood waters, his message breathed, "Walk with God, even in a crooked generation. For he who walks with God shall not be moved." And the flood passed. The ark rested upon Ararat. A new beginning dawned upon a cleansed earth, and the Lord established his covenant with Noah, the rainbow as witness between God and man, that mercy would endure even in wrath. But the story of Enoch was not forgotten. It was sung around campfires by the sons of Shem. It was whispered in caves by those who feared the Lord. It was recorded in scrolls and passed mouth to ear in deserts and valleys, in tents and temples. A man had once walked with God and had been taken. His life became a prophecy not only of judgment but also of hope. For Enoch had shown that death is not the end, and that intimacy with the Creator is the highest destiny of man. Generations would rise and prophets would speak. The law would be given, the kingdom would come, and the Messiah would walk among men. But still, Enoch's name would burn like a star in the memory of the faithful. Even Jude, the brother of the Lord, would speak of Enoch. "Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all." And the apostle would write of a day to come, when, like Enoch, the faithful would be caught up to meet the Lord in the air, bypassing death, clothed in glory. Thus the life of Enoch became more than history. It became a mirror of things to come, a divine whisper echoing through the corridors of time, that man was not made merely for dust, but for the presence of God. That those who walk with the Almighty shall not be forgotten, but shall dwell with him forevermore. And to all generations his life declares, "Draw near unto God, and he shall draw near unto you." Amen. The story of Enoch is not merely a story of ancient days. It is a living testimony, a whisper from eternity calling us back to what we were made for: fellowship with God. In a world overcome with wickedness, Enoch chose to walk a different path. He lived in the presence of the Most High, unshaken by the corruption around him. And because of his unwavering devotion, he escaped the grave. God took him.
His life was a prophecy, his walk a sermon, his translation a promise. Enoch's story reminds us that God is not distant, nor is holiness unreachable. It shows us that one life, fully yielded to God, can shine like a beacon in the darkest of generations. His legacy echoes through time, urging us to walk not merely in belief, but in intimacy with our Creator. As it was then, so it is now. The world groans under sin. Darkness grows bold. But those who walk with God will be set apart, preserved, empowered, and carried by grace. Will you walk as Enoch walked? Let Enoch's life stir your soul. Choose today to seek God not as an idea, but as a friend. To walk with Him in prayer, in obedience, and in faith. Open the Word. Let the Scriptures be your roadmap, just as they were for Enoch's descendants. Begin or deepen your journey of devotion today. Live set apart. In a world that pulls us into pride, fear, and compromise, choose righteousness, humility, and truth. Let your life preach louder than your words. Share the story. Spread this message to your family, your friends, your generation. Tell of Enoch, the man who walked with God and was not, because God took him. Say this short prayer with me. O Lord, teach me to walk with you. May I not be satisfied with empty religion, but seek your presence above all else. As you walked with Enoch, walk with me. Amen. If this story has inspired you, share it, like it, and walk it out, for Enoch's journey is not closed. It is open to all who dare to walk with the Eternal. You too can be a friend of God. Please support our ministry by subscribing to our channel. God bless you.